Good evening, everyone. We are going back into open session. This is continuing the meeting of the Gloucester School Committee on Wednesday, January 11th, 2000. Yes, I mean, in the salute to the flag. To the flag of the United States of America. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty. Next item of business is oral communications. If you are calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you're watching on a computer or device, there's a raise hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of those options during oral communications to be recognized to speak. If anybody does want to speak, you are limited to 3 minutes each and shall identify yourself and yeah, that kind of summarizes what we expect. Is there anybody in attendance that would like to address the school committee?
Marianne.
Okay, Marianne. You are
Thank
welcome
you.
to speak.
Thank you, Marianne Albert Boucher. Happy New Year to all of you. I'll make this very quick. I was just at the last meeting, the subcommittee meeting, and I basically could only see Bill Melvin, and it was very difficult to hear a lot of the meeting or some of the meeting. And I would ask that future meetings, maybe if everybody's faces could be shown so that we can see and hear everything that you do say, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.
Marianne, can you hear us now?
I can right now, and I see all of your faces, but the last meeting, I could not. It was very difficult. I could hear background talking amongst the members, and I was unable to understand what was being discussed with some of it. So I just wanted to put that out there. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item of business is recognitions. Anybody have any recognitions?
I can't remember if we had a meeting since this, but it feels like it's been forever. But someone mentioned the holiday concert. That happened eons ago, it feels like. It was both the O'Malley band and the high school band. I went with my husband and my 2 kids, and it was excellent. The chorus was there as well. High school chorus. Unfortunately, we weren't able to stay for the whole thing because my kids can't hang, but it was just very cool to sort of see the O'Malley band and the high school band come together and just being able to see that progression of skill. And just the like pure joy on the teachers' faces. They clearly love their jobs and they just do an excellent job. So kudos to them. Thank you.
I just want to recognize the students that we met yesterday during the CBTE visit, and all the inspectors. I don't think there could be any more. The work that the students are doing and that you're doing in the program, and some of the explanations that the students gave us were just outstanding. So really appreciated the opportunity.
I'll show a couple pictures later. A couple. You're not
So did I preempt you? You got some pictures? That's all right.
No, I'm used to it now.
All right. Thank you for the recognitions. I do not see our student advisory council must be busy this evening, so we will move on. The next item is the consent agenda. Does anybody have any items on the consent agenda that they would like to remove?
I move that we approve the consent agenda. Second.
Okay, Maria, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Minio.
Yes.
Ms. Prince.
Yes.
Mayor Verda stepped out. Ms. Watson.
Yes.
Ms. Weason.
Yes.
Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
And Mr. Melvin.
Yes.
Without objection, I would like to take the first item under action, which is the Massachusetts Executive Office of Education fiscal year 2023 skills capital facility and rounded grant to Gloucester High School $117,000. So Without objection.
So I'll introduce Brenda Waslick, who is our new director of our career vocational technical education programs here at Gloucester High. First year here, most everyone got a chance to meet her yesterday when she gave us a fabulous tour of the programs for electrical, carpentry, automotive, and advanced manufacturing programs. And she's here to just give you a quick summary about the skills grant, which you saw sort of in action yesterday, but Brenda, just welcome, first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
To your first school committee meeting. Thank you for yesterday, which was great again to see the programs, talk to the students, see them at work. Just appreciate you being here and all the work you're doing to strengthen and expand our CBT programs.
Thank you. The grant was written for two shops. It was limited to that. Advanced manufacturing and carpentry under the state auspices, but the compressor technology supports more than those two programs. They run the machines basically for the auto, carpentry, and advanced manufacturing programs, which is 3/4 of our vocational programs. So it's going to be upgrading technology for the compressors and then some new equipment for the carpentry shop. Bring it more up to speed, industry standard wise. And the split is pretty fairly 50-50 in the grant. I don't know if you have any other questions or if that's adequate.
Want to tell how old the compressor right
I'm saying, maybe 60 years old. I don't know, we didn't really test the rust on them, but they're at least 60 years old. The replacements, sorely needed. One of them had been locked out and tagged out over the pandemic because they are equipment that needs to run, and it needs to run constantly, and the pandemic kind of put the stops to one of them. And what happens is you buy two and they back each other up to support. So every configuration has the two compressors that the work won't stop, that it will support the other in all the areas. It also supports the cabinetry program as well, which is ancillary to the Chapter 7 book.
Any other questions? Wonderful news.
So just the last piece is just reiterate that this is as we've been explaining and working on with the committee's support. Expanding our current programs and strengthening our current programs and also expanding the new program. Part of the strengthening is modernizing technology.
Absolutely.
This is one of those steps in that the first step not the first step on strengthening, but the first step on strengthening, so modernizing some of the equipment. There's other work which Brenda did come back later in the school year to talk about in terms of strengthening the work. Brenda gave you a short summary of that yesterday. Strengthening the program work, instruction, assessment, and sort of stuff for the students, but certainly you heard yesterday in the tour about the certain work you do in strengthening partnerships, certain a lot of areas. So pretty excited about that. And I think one thing we got a great look at yesterday was just how the kids are actively engaged and learning deeply. And also, I think folks had to witness just the incredible commitment and enthusiasm, as well as expertise of our staff there. These folks are devoted to the work, to the students. That's really so it's big.
Just to broaden that, this particular grant is completely foundational. This is where we start. Without this, we can't really build further. And the projects that the students were working on are notable. They're the Sheds for the Veterans project, the new school, and solar panels to energize the auto shop and other parts of the vocational shops with solar energy.
As we see on the screen now is yesterday, where the students installing the first solar panels on the side of the auto shop. That's been an effort that's been in progress for a number of years, working alongside the DPW on that. But the students not only installing, putting up the panels, but have done, as you saw yesterday, all the electrical, developing the electrical panel inside and all the conduit to capture the electricity and then utilize it in the shop. So they are doing the full installation from on their own. As well as, and that's really the approach that folks take, is Bob Devlin, our electrical instructor, likes to say, he likes to keep his hands clean and the students get their hands dirty doing the work, so. But Bob's down there on the right, down here, next to Jack Porter, who's the, one of our head auto teacher. And they're obviously talking about some of the things that are going on with panels there. On the left, you have student Sam Rodriguez, advanced manufacturing, and ROTC student, who's educating members about the high-tech advanced manufacturing equipment, the name of which I cannot remember right now.
There's CNC lanes there. I don't know that particular machine, but they have CNC lanes and the other set of equipment escapes me, but there's several different
Yeah.
milling.
so
Yeah,
this-
CNC milling, CNC lanes. Yeah. I can't see it. Can't identify on site.
And the
Yeah,
other piece that runs it, of course, is the coding students do to program the advanced lanes and then have it run. So just great stuff. And Sam was a great representative of the school and also the program. So
I have a question. To either administration or Brenda. So I'm hearing we're gonna buy tools for the carpentry department,
equipment.
Okay. Do we have an inventory list of equipment, the date we got it? Per se of the assets of vocational programs?
I would
Are you aware of
say
any?
partially, because certainly all the computers are inventory.
Yeah,
I do not know about the equipment per se, if it's been tagged, maybe James.
grant things that are purchased with grants.
Yeah,
so in other words, if I asked how many screwdrivers are in the auto shop, do we know? We don't know.
No,
no,
we know the purchases and the teachers keep that and, they keep that information, but one of the things of, having Brenda on board is the ability to centralize some of that oversight.
Right,
So it's not just on the teacher.
because I'm just thinking going forward, and I know you have so much dropped into your lap just
Mhm.
starting, and I'm not trying to make it work for you. It
right,
would make sense that as a school district, and when we're talking about budget and programs and stuff, that we would actually know what's there, right? Like we inventory our kitchens, we should be inventorying our vocational program assets as well. It's just so that we have an idea, the last time we bought hammers was in 1970, right? Or
right.
whatever, just so that we have an idea of what we're doing, the investments that are going in, if things get lost or need to be replaced, I think that is a conversation that should be ongoing. The BNF to keep vocational programming at the forefront of us.
Yep.
Like we do other departments, so it'd be interesting if we could start doing something like that, or at least talk about starting to do something.
Part of the vision and part of the modernization of those shops, for example, in carpentry and electrical and auto, we're getting storage. You saw some of those in electrical that can be locked up.
Right.
So then the students, when it's time to clean up, are responsible for returning the amount of tools, as it were, to maintain that. A lot of them, and they're not tools that can be used in perpetuity either, so
Right.
they have a shelf life, even though it may be longer. But part of the plan is, Snap-on has these beautiful shelves where you have a full set of tools for the day. You take them out from your job and then you make sure they're back as part of your grade, cleanup, the whole flow of the shop. So that is definitely part of what we're planning to do.
then I see an addition to that, I think something you're getting at as well, was that we can say, these tools haven't been bought since 19 whatever, or 2000 whatever. And that then helps us, you, Brenda and James, build a case for the BNF and the committee.
Exactly.
This is what we need, so.
And that we do have the purchasing is we do make reference to that. And one of the reasons for that, that helps a lot with the Perkins grant planning, to know what we've used previously and also to make sure we're sharing the wealth across the
Right.
shops and things. So with purchasing, we do have that data to be able to look back at, like, when did
So
you
we'll
purchase
talk
this
back,
and that?
Right, and I mean.
Right, exactly.
Not to do it, But I think
Right.
we should, it's a discussion for another day,
Yeah.
but
Yes,
definitely want to have it another day.
yes, but it is also embedded in the frameworks that you need a certain caliber of tools
Exactly.
to work.
Right.
Particularly in auto, you have to have up-to-date tools, and that's right in the frameworks, so that solidifies the grant process and everything we're talking about.
Good to know. Thank you.
Just a quick comment on. I noticed the 3D printers that you have and brand called MakerBot. I mean, you know, if you think about tech, and I'm only, it's more of a comment than anything else, and only because I'm in the manufacturing world, that, you know, you think old time stuff is CNC machining. That's how they used to make parts, CNC machining. Now they've gone to 3D printing.
Yeah.
Next is laser printing. That's 3 times faster than 3D printing.
Yeah.
Do you find that more kids are getting interested in, you know, the 3D printing aspect of it? And I realize it's kind of a program that, you know, introduces kids to these technologies, but the real trick is going to be to stay, you know, 25 years from now, there might not be CNC machines. Everything might be laser printed, you know.
Yeah,
I can show you pictures of huge jet engine parts that are basically laser printed or 3D printed versus the old days of putting them on a spindle, CNC machining them for 5 days to produce your part. So, I mean, not so much, I'd like to hear some feedback just on,
Mhm.
hey, you know, do the kids recognize that, hey, this is the future right here in 3D printing and laser printing?
you're talking about two different things. You're talking about the output devices.
Yep.
And we also have the input devices where they're designing, and that software is state of the art, brand new. And where you take them out to is, it could be the 3D printer. It's the same basis in the
Right.
software, it's the SolidWorks and the Mastercam.
Right.
And the kids all have access to those pieces of software.
Good.
And they could take it to the CNC machine, or they can take it out to the 3D printer or to the laser engraver, et cetera. So the basis, the foundation is the same, it's just the output devices
Yeah.
that, and technically, the output devices, except for the mechanical breakdowns,
Yeah.
are basically a lot simpler for training and to use than it is to get that software.
Right.
So,
Very interesting.
And there are a few different entry points to that as well. So we do have the advanced manufacturing program, but we also have our engineering classes, including the class engineering, manufacturing and design, where they actually learn about some of the benefits of the different processes of you know, 3D printing versus milling. And one of the things students in that class determine is what might be, if I were to go beyond the prototype, right, of this, costing out what would be the best way of mass manufacturing this
Right.
particular device that they've created. Say it's something to amplify the sound in your cell phone. For example, students are designing and they figure out what are some of the best ways of doing that. So there's the advanced manufacturing class that we got to see, and then we have our engineering classes as well. There are different kind of entry points to some of the same design and the same technology, but different ways of getting into it.
Very interesting stuff. Conversation, like Melissa said, conversation for another day, but just kind of expand on that to let kids know, hey, you know, first you got to find the right technology to make the part that you do. You know, what's the most cost effective, what's the most time sensitive, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of people don't even think about that, but
that is
it's
a
part of the technology.
That's state of the art.
Yep.
The output devices.
Well,
I just wanted to say one thing. I'm sure we would love to hear a lot more about you and about the program, which will happen at a different meeting. Because every year we get a report on the vocations program. So it's great that you're here for us to accept. I think there are 3 grants here on our agenda for the vocational program. So we'll do that while you're here. And we look forward to hearing more from you and asking you even more questions, because we find that this is a great forum for the community to also get informed about what's happening at Foster High School.
Absolutely, anytime.
Okay, so I move that we accept the Massachusetts Executive Office of Education fiscal year 2023 Skills Capital Facility and Round 2 grant to Gloucester High School in the amount of $117,000.
Second.
Discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
Ms. Prince.
Yes.
Mayor Verga,
Yes.
Ms. Watson.
Yes.
Ms. Weason.
Yes.
Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
And Mr. Melvin.
Yes.
And the next grant, motion passes unanimously. Next grant is from the Gloucester Education Foundation in the amount of $15,000 to the Gloucester High School Vocational Program, and it is for the same, going to the same compressor we just heard about.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, Maria?
Mr. Minio.
Yes.
Ms. Prince.
Yes.
Mayor Verga,
Yes.
Ms. Watson.
Yes.
Ms. Weason.
Yes.
Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
And Mr. Melvin.
Yes.
Okay. And the third grant is Gloucester Education Foundation grant in the amount of $50,000 to the Gloucester High School Automotive Technology Program.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? I would just say this is a continuation of Warren Law and Lion Law's generosity to have our auto tech program be able to service more kids, which has been terrific. for many years.
Yeah. If you're allowed to, so this funding for, this is the fourth year now for Warren Law, for Lion Law Group, in this very generous donation to PF. It allows us to have a full second teacher in the automated program who has a name, it's Bud Maciel, right?
Yep.
And I'd love James to talk a little bit about your impressions of the way Bud approaches his work and works with students. So.
Sure, yeah, and folks got to see a little bit of this yesterday, and got to see that in action a little bit, but on a sort of regular day of these observations in the auto shop, one of the really cool things that I get to see is both Jack and Bud teaching a group of students in a way that fully realizes the basis of instruction in the school across the curriculum, right? So from a math teacher to what's going on in the shops. And that's the culturally responsive teaching model that I've talked about before. So you'll see Bud talking about a vision of, say, you got to see the car on its side that they're going to be putting the floor in, right? Quite a corroded old vehicle, and so the igniting activity is the vision of how each student has a role in bringing that to a restoration, right? And then on a given day of instruction, he's going to chunk some material into 10 or 15 minutes of like, here's what we're going to be doing today, right? So here's the instruction, here's the skill that this small group of students will be learning. Then they're processing that by doing it themselves under his supervision, right? They're taking that instruction and then putting it into action. Like I said, under his supervision. And then in the wrap up, there's what did you learn today? What are the takeaways? How far did you get? What did you run into that were problems that maybe you didn't anticipate going in? What do we need to do and pick up tomorrow? What might you need to learn to take it to the next step? And that, one of the cool things that I get to see that kind of instruction of what it looks like in the auto shop, what it looks like in math, and so on. And the fact that we have Bud in the shop with Jack allows for more of that kind of individualized teaching, right? That kind of that chunk of material, more students are able to be supervised and actively processing and working on the cool projects that you got to see. And that's really hit me. And really last year hit me so very clearly when I was doing those observations with that kind of simultaneous teaching. It also allows us to have more freshmen in that intro class, right? We have more students in the gateway. So as you know, it's limited to 15 students per instructor. So we get more students at the door. That's obvious, but the less obvious is allowing this fully realized vision of the brain-based culturally responsive teaching that Bud's awesome at it. We really appreciate the grant for that reason. Among other reasons.
And I just wanted to add that whenever I have the opportunity to be in the school, I'm always looking to say, well, is that an impactful teacher? And both those instructors are impactful people. You can tell that the kids are tuned into what they're saying and they're enthusiastic about what they're putting out there. I'm always impressed by that.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
Ms. Prince.
Yes.
Mayor Verda,
Yes.
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Ms. Weason.
Yes.
Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
And Mr. Melvin.
Yes.
Excellent grants to accept this evening. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Welcome to stay.
Why not?
Go.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Hopefully we're back soon with more grants.
Okay, we will move on to deliberations on education issues and superintendent's report.
So. Hello, let me just jump in to, I'll start things off with a few just updates. Already covered one of them was. So tonight, a few updates from me, then we'll go, Amy Pascal will lead a presentation with James Cook about the NEASC accreditation of the high school, renewal of the NEASC accreditation at the high school. I'll give you a budget planning update for FY 2024, and then a FEMA playground update, which will have two updates, one on installation of the playground, but also a proposed relocation of the current memorial that is at the playground. Okay, so let's jump in here. I did that one. Excellent. So just wanted to highlight the recent retirements of two longtime elementary school secretaries. I'm going to skip ahead this one. Kathy Doe was a longtime secretary at East Gloucester, and a right-hand person of Amy Pascal when she was principal there, retired in September. And I don't think we recognized her at that point. We didn't hear, they did a lot.
Yes.
But just a few things about Kathy was that she was with us for 28 years, started as a noon supervisor, probably then a yard lady, perhaps. That was back then at West Parish. Became secretary of West Parish and the Beeman, and finally landed at her home, which is East Gloucester, and was at East Gloucester for
7 years.
For 7 years, okay. But as it,
Told me she would come for 2.
so she was there for your whole, right?
Yeah.
There you go. And also was very instrumental in the coordination of the Nature's Classroom. It says here, we considered her the Marion Providence. Is that right?
Yeah.
East Gloucester. But really, she's retired, really doing a fair bit of traveling now, but also spending part of the time with her family and her grandchildren, mostly locally. So wanted to acknowledge Kathy. And then just last week, Lois Lane from West Parish retired on the 6th. And Lois was in the district for more than 22 years, all at West Parish. She started there as a para, and then was a secretary for just over 19 years. And as you can see, a lot of celebrating Lois last week and on Friday. What you can see around her neck here, and also what the kids are putting on here, is each student rather, put a link of a paper chain together. And then hour by hour, last Friday, the whole grade would come down and bestow their paper chain with all their individual links onto Lois, literally onto Lois. And so you see her sort of wrapped up, and this is probably the 5th graders here. And so each gave her a message, and I was there. I happened to stop by as well, and on purpose to say thank you to Lois. But she was consoling 2 students who were crying. They were crying for any other reason other than she was leaving. And as she said, one of them is a crier, one's definitely not a crier, but they were both crying. And she assured them, and she assured Lena and others, including myself, that she's going to be back. Lena's already signed her up for 4 days of substituting after a nice trip to this point. So, and then Lois, we love you in the upper right-hand corner. That's the PTA does a great job. These are yard cards, and every once in a while you see some pop up at West Parish. It's a particularly big yard card for Lois, but just wanted to highlight those two. And one, wonderful people, but two, they themselves, both of them, but all our school secretaries, really a linchpin in our school and our school communities. They are, as the chain was purposeful. They said Lois held them together. And that happens all over our schools with our school secretaries. And just wanted to acknowledge that, take the time to also acknowledge Kath too, but just really highlight what an important role every single day our school secretaries play in our lives, our communities, and just this really so much gets moving in our schools. So I just want to come over to that.
Yeah, my kids came home that day and had a lot of nice things to say about Lois, and that they were gonna miss her. And judging by my kids, they said, oh, all the kids were really gonna miss her. So, and she was front facing, at the door, all the kids knew her, and yeah, it's gonna be a big transition for them.
They all came home sweating because of the dance party they had.
Mhm.
It was a very big party.
So, and also then welcome Darlene Piscatello, who replaced Lois, and Taravina, who replaced Kathy, and they're gonna be obviously a big fixture in those schools as well, so. The other thing is, we have now completed the new website launches for all schools. Oh, thank goodness. So they are a lot easier to find information, to navigate, to use on a mobile device. They're very friendly to phones, that sort of thing. Much easier to update. A variety of folks can update them, and we're working on that. Have some similar structures. I'm just showing you sort of the header of each one. That's West Parish and Foster Preschool, and then O'Malley and Gloucester High. This is, I would say, this is a huge improvement from what we've had. Okay. At the same time, they're sort of a step in the right direction. They're not the end goal. The end goal will be probably much more robust in maybe a couple of years. These are all built on Google Sites, which is very helpful and very easy to update and very mobile, integrated with mobile devices. And so it's a real strong step in the right direction. And it also allows us to, link them in a way where we're updating a file or a document or a history or that sort of thing in one place, and it's all getting updated in multiple places, so that helps as well. So a strong improvement, and it's a step in the right direction.
Are they standalone sites, Ben, or are they just, everything's picked up off the main?
No, so the challenge with, they are standalone sites, and even more so, for example, the first one we did, which was the district website, had multiple standalone sites that appear as one, but the back end is not one.
Nice.
And that's one of the limitations.
Yeah.
Because with Google, the access in terms of updating and how you give access is pretty limited.
Right.
And of course, we want multiple people to be able to update it because we don't have staff to do one for all of them. In order to have those privileges, you do have to sort of nest separate sites.
Right.
So that's one of the challenges that then plays out. It's good for updating and being current and managing the site. It's bad for things like search, for example. That's why the search functions don't operate across all sites or even the district site. Am I being clear about that?
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
I just have one small suggestion for all of the schools is under staff directory or even on like the very front page, have a place where it says who you email for attendance. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Because this is something I went through with the new changeover from Lois to Darlene, right? So I didn't know the email address, and I would imagine that that's becoming probably cumbersome for the school to sort of have to make all those phone calls and follow up. So to just have a either be like attendance at the school or have Yeah. I think it might just help streamline the process, of the parents, especially and the school back end.
Because I don't do this ever. I don't have a child in school when I,
Yeah.
My husband just kept saying, there's no disattended at.
right, so,
I email. Just email the teacher and the
okay,
secretary.
Email.
I don't.
They call me. But do we accept emails for attendance?
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yes,
great, that's very helpful. I will hand it over to Amy and James. And they will give an update on the ask accreditation. And then I'll step back to about other pieces. Peter, what you're getting there.
All right. You want to share it?
Yeah, I'll share it. Why don't you start, just give me the.
It's me, ask. Want me to share?
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
Then we'll pull it up. What you're going to see is a new design for a slideshow that's Gloucester specific. I'm gonna show that off for a
Really
minute.
good.
I got a little carried away. I'm gonna give Grant Harris the credit for the fishman on the front.
Great.
It's his drawing.
Thank you, which reminds me, I have to interrupt you, I'm sorry. Grant Harris has been legendary with websites. Okay, the schools have also helped out a ton, but he, in terms of design, in terms of push, in terms of leadership, in terms of getting things done. And I would be really remiss if I didn't acknowledge that, so sorry
Thank
about it.
you.
He also used his illustration skills to
Yeah.
create the icon that's here and on our website, on the high school's website.
He drew that.
Yeah.
Yes.
His work is
Yeah,
unbelievable.
and if
He's
you look
really
at the
talented.
field house as well, the center icon in the field house is Grant's.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I give a little credit for that, but I stole his image and made a slideshow, so there you go. All right, you go ahead. So this is the NEAS presentation. There's symbol, you go ahead. James is gonna start off with talking about the process, and then I get to talk about all the good stuff they said about us.
Thank you, Amy, for setting that up. And so it's a long process, as you all know, because I've been given reports for a very long time, but all 7 years that I've been principal of Gloucester High School. So way back in way back in 2018, we had completed the self-reflection report. That report took a couple of years to create. So really it began as soon as I became principal of Gloucester High School. As the program leader for the English department, I was already working on elements specific to English of the NEAS report. So this self-reflection report was part of a new design for 2020, what NEAS called their Vision 2020. And instead of having one giant report and then after 10 years having a team come and evaluate the report and talk to people and do all these things and then give a rating, they designed a couple, 3 steps so that you could work on things before the accreditation report. So the first thing you would do is reflect on, okay, where are we in the standards, in the NEASC standards? How are we doing? How's our progress? And then they would send a small team of folks made up of a representative from NEASC as well as area educators. The principals give folks time off to go visit schools and read the reports and go into classrooms and talk to students and look at student presentations. So that happened in the collaborative conference visit in October of 2018. And then they gave us their report, the collaborative conference report, in February of 2019. The collaborative conference visit coincided pretty closely with the process that we underwent with another organization that through DESE came and also gave us feedback on the school. So we had the NEASC visit, the collaborative conference visit, and we had the SchoolWorks visit around the same time that came from DESE. Fortunately, they said a lot of the same things, right, which was really beneficial. And so when we were creating the school growth plan in May of 2019, we were at the same time creating a sustainable improvement plan for DESE. And even though the standards are a little bit different for NEASC than they are for DESE, we made sure they were aligned. And so you might remember from some of my presentations, I would crosswalk them and show, okay, this is what we're doing for NEASC, but it's similar to what we're doing, and here's how the two fit together. So as far as the staff knows, they're doing one thing, right? You know, and I know, and I show them where we're doing have two different people we're communicating with, but in terms of the vision for the school, it's one vision for the school. So that we put together in May of 2019. We then had a couple of years during COVID, largely, to put this plan into action, which we did, despite all the other things we were dealing with, and then created the reflective summary report. So this is a longer report that now says, with this growth plan, what have we been able to do with the feedback from the collaborative conference visit? What have we been able to get done? We share that with NEASC in this big reflective summary report that the faculty wrote and then approved by the September of 2021. And then in October of 2021, a visiting team came to Gloucester High School to the 10-year accreditation visit. By that point, it was almost 12 years because of some delays, as you might expect, but we still call it the decennial review. And what Amy will be showing is then another year, it took the woman, Allison Geary, who works for NEASC. We love working with Allison. She's super helpful for the school, gives us great feedback and helps us various steps. She had a baby in the interim. So in addition to COVID, then we had a baby and that took another year. So we had about a delay in getting the report that Amy will finally be presenting tonight. And there's a lot of good news in it.
Excellent, thank you. So the report is broken into 4 parts. There's 2 priority areas, and we'll talk about that. Then there's the reflection of a student learning. James talked a little bit about that. And then there's a capacity for continuous growth. So the first thing we're going to talk about is priority 1, and that's brain-based culturally responsive instructional practices. You've heard this when we talked about MCAS and how we're moving forward at high school. When we talked about professional development, you've heard about this for several years now, that we're really implementing it correctly, slowly and continuously. So that is really going to make a difference. So a priority area is the brain-based culturally responsive instructional practices, and that's to support learning for students for higher order thinking and to engage them and demonstrate communication, collaboration, problem solving skills, all lining up with the vision of a graduate, and also to have a written curriculum that supports that brain-based thinking instruction. So we have several commendations. We would be here all night if I read all the commendations, so I'm going to highlight a few. One, I want to talk about to hear that a feeling of the majority of students that have at least one adult in the school that cares for them means a lot. to know that they can say there's at least somebody in that school they could go to. That's an outstanding accommodation. And the commitment of the school and the district to do its best for students. That kind of just makes you proud just hearing that, right? To have a strong foundational structures that support professional learning, such as PLCs, instructional leadership teams, racial equity teams, and other student growth teams. That's something that we don't see in every high school, so it's tremendous that it's here. There are many other accommodations, but I'll let you read through, sorry. The working bullet. All right, priority 2 is to increase social emotional learning. And if we remember back to James's discussion about professional development, he talked about those 2 buckets. It was that instructional and social emotional, and that's carried out throughout. So it's really outstanding to see that. And that's to promote self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, responsible skills and social awareness, for student wellness, attendance, transition from the middle school, and equity and inclusion. So this is all like really important work that they do on a continuous basis. Go ahead. So for this, we have 2 slides full of commendations, but I'll highlight just a few from each. The school-wide focus on the social and emotional well-being of all students and teachers. That's outstanding. The school-wide commitment to the work on equity and inclusion, including professional learning and day-to-day implementation strategies. So those are things that they do every day to make sure everybody feels they belong, they're included, they're represented in the school. So there's a lot of work that is tremendous that they're doing at the high school. It's work that needs to continue. We're not done, but they're certainly going in the right track. If you go to the next slide, continue, sorry, all right. So the diverse opportunities for professional development for faculty and staff, that's an outstanding thing that we have for our teachers, that they have multiple opportunities to grow their craft. The elimination of barriers to school and learning for all students through the creation of the DCAP and how they implement that. So to work it, there's always going to be barriers, but to continuously work to knock down those barriers so students can engage and be part of the curriculum is what they do every day. And faculty and staff support student-led equity and inclusion initiatives. You're going to keep hearing the student-led this year as well. And as we go on with our plan for ongoing improvement, it's really important. The students have a part of their learning and they have a voice. And so it's wonderful that it was seen at the high school. Our next part is the reflection of student learning. And this is going to look at the instructional practices, the design to meet the student needs, multiple opportunities for students to demonstrate their knowledge and to share and collaborate. So that's what we're going to highlight in this section. And if you want, the variety of instructional strategies was noted as a strength at Gloucester High School, and also to have choices provided for students to demonstrate their knowledge. So we heard a little bit more about this in the O'Malley presentation about the UDL, about a student choice. That's already embedded in the high school. So it's an outstanding thing that they're doing there, and to have that so they can have multiple ways of sharing their knowledge. And also the intentional use of social emotional wellness strategies by teachers to get a greater awareness of how the students are doing. That's an outstanding. The capacity for continuous growth. So this is talking about conceptual understanding, commitment, competency and capacity for growth. Amongst staff, yes. And I didn't tell James I was going to highlight this next one, but it is in here. Go ahead. And it's certainly well deserved. The competency of the principal's leadership, as well as other strong leaders within the building, was noted as a strength of Gloucester High School. So that's something.
You keep wanting us to take that out.
Yes, and so I didn't tell him I was going to not note it, but it is well deserved. Okay. Also, the time built into the school schedule for PLC and department meetings. I actually was talking with somebody from another district, and I said I worked in Gloucester, and they said, "Oh, I met the principal there. They did all that work on the vision of the graduate and things." So it's a wonderful what you're doing. So and it's noted by NEASC. So that's a wonderful thing.
Can you describe you or James on PLCs, just in professional learning communities, in case folks don't know either listening or in the room?
Sure, so professional learning communities are time we have built into the school day. So in our new, 5-day schedule, teachers have a couple days in the cycle where they, one day where they meet as a whole department and another 2 days where they meet in smaller professional learning communities to work on developing curriculum, instruction, and assessments together with other people. So, for example, right now we have mid-year assessments coming up, and so they're looking at the common elements that will be in the mid-year assessments, and then planning for after the mid-year assessments happen. What do we learn from that, right? Where are students doing strong? What are some surprises where we may need to reteach some things in the second half of the year, where students didn't do quite as well? In a lot of high schools, that's left up to the individual teachers. There isn't time built into the day where folks get to do that together. And especially where you get some, lead teachers being able to guide that work so that their expertise really gets through the whole department. And that's one of the things we've been able to do with our schedule is design the time in. And that it's actually taking commitment also, through contract negotiations and all these kinds of things that the committee has helped with that over the years. So we have that built in, and other folks are jealous of us having that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So those were a long list of accommodations. These are the complete recommendations. There are 4. To continue the work of differentiating lessons, activities, and materials in all classes to meet the needs of all students. To develop a more student-centered instructional strategy so that students are doing the majority of the thinking and doing during their classes. So when we talked about cultural responsive teaching, that's the chewing part. When James described it in the auto class where they get to go and think about the lesson that was taught and known it. So they are encouraging us to develop more student-centered. Remember, this was from a couple of years ago visit, so we are already on the right track. So that's really good to see. To ensure that all classes at all levels use higher order thinking activities on a daily basis. We always can improve there. So that's one of the things we're working on. And to continue to develop strategies for the implementation and application of conceptual understandings the faculty have gained.
So that's sort of code for that high school teachers have an understanding of social emotional learning in a way that, certainly when I started 24 years ago, that was not an expectation of a high school teacher. So that's one conceptual understanding. The other conceptual understanding is the brain-based culturally responsive teaching. The design of the lesson is also, understood, not just the content area understanding that the physics teacher has or the calculus teacher has, but they also understand how to design the time they have with students to ignite the learning, to chunk the material, to give them a chance to actively process and then review. So that's what they mean when they say implementation and application of conceptual understandings. So, when I talked to Allison about this, I was able to, talk about how this year through the professional development that you heard Amy present back in the fall, we're really focusing on teachers presenting those brain-based lessons to their peers and getting feedback. That's what we mean by the implementation and application. So it's great when we finally got the report that, okay, these are the 4 things we're focused on. So, okay, we'll be able to keep doing that. We didn't have to do any course changes based on the report.
It's nice to know we're on the right track.
And from my point of view, it's all about deepening. It's about deepening the work and getting cemented into the culture and everyday practice. And particularly the piece, those examples of, I always thought when I was teaching that I left exhausted every day and the students sort of pranced out of school, right? If we need to make sure the students are doing more of the thinking, more of the doing, more of the, organizing, more that sort of stuff. And that's really what speaks.
Everybody's exhausted.
Yes.
Yes.
Also younger, okay?
Good luck with that.
All right, so James is going to talk for a minute about the process and then next steps.
So then the next step in the cycle is it's this shows sort of the overall, you
The
know,
next slide is what.
uh, yeah. So, as a school community, we, you know, the report praised how we did in each phase of the process, including, you know, doing, identifying our strengths, our areas of need, hosting the conference, developing the improvement plan, and then completing our own report for feedback. And that then allowed NEASC to give us feedback on the things we wanted them to observe, right? How are we doing progressing in these areas? I did go on a visit a few years ago, and the school had, before the collaborative conference, hadn't really done a lot of the work yet. They were kind of waiting for NEASC to come in and tell them where to go. So this first part was really about how, by doing this work up front, and the faculty just spent so much time in each area, right? The shop teachers, the English department, the physical education teachers. You've seen generalities here, but it's all the detail that goes into the full staff. So then the report gives us a blueprint for how we can move forward to improve the quality of our programs. You saw the 4 recommendations. Those are the areas we're going to continue to work in. You already knew about them from a prior report. So we keep leaning in and deepening the work as Ben suggested. So then I will be working with Allison Geary again with NEASC to submit a first report of progress and planning. We did it verbally recently because where you see a 3-year and 6-year report, for us, it's going to be a 2-year and a 5-year report because we already are a year in, right? Because we were waiting for the report, but because we were already doing the work and in contact with Allison, that's really no problem for us. So then 2 years from now, I will be doing working with my instructional leadership team on a 2-year report, and then 5 years doing a 5-year report. As we get closer to that 10-year cycle again, after the 6-year report, that's when we begin those steps that I outlined at the beginning. We begin them all over again after the 6-year report, which is really 5 years from now. That's the follow-up.
Any questions?
Go ahead, Melissa.
Does, first kudos, right, James,
Thank
being
you.
recognized and all the great work that's going on at the high school. My question is, so we got this presentation tonight,
Yeah.
right, makes us feel good, you know, we
Yeah.
know we're doing
Yeah.
it right. What are the teachers getting? Like, have they been informed? Like, is there a thank you? You know, we couldn't do this without you. Look what we're doing, you know, look at the recognition, look at every
Yeah.
single one of the recognitions, you know, and look where we are already considering the recommendations they
Yeah.
made. Like, it's what kind of conversation is going on?
Yes, we did it. Yeah, we did that yesterday. We had our, you know, the faculty meeting. We had cookies and coffee yesterday for the faculty, and the big presentation of those recommendations to folks. So they could get we'll look at them first, and then with you all following right after that. Moving forward, I will be, working with the team and the ILT, highlighting different aspects of them so we can digest a little bit.
Yeah.
Yesterday was really about the amount and the number, and we finally made it here, but we have other business because we're coming up to the semester mark and we got work to do. So we actually have talked a lot about that as a team. Sort of here about how we can continue to celebrate things and how we can get the word out as well through social media. So we actually have a campaign ready to go where we're highlighting some of those areas.
Campaign might be a little generous, but.
I think it's a campaign.
And what about the
No,
feedback?
You got a plan.
We want to reiterate, we first highlight this, and you'll be seeing that in coming days, and then on an ongoing basis, reiterate some of the strengths and show pictures of folks doing these things. Right? So it could be professional learning, it could be the students actively engaged, it could be support of right, but we want to show pictures and that sort of thing, and others that portray the good work that's happening, and your points a lot of the work.
And what was the feedback when they heard
From the
that?
teachers.
Any, like,
Feedback
from a
from the
high level?
Teachers, you know,
Anything
it was,
unexpected? Or just yay for us or?
it was, I think. We worked so much on this that it was a bit of a like a good feeling of recognition of what we think is good about Gloucester High School too, right? Like, yes, these are the areas that we know and are confident that continuing to work on these things, continuing to value these things will help us in those areas of recommendation that we continue to work on. So it was a good feeling to be able to review them. I know that because I want to make sure that we, as Ben was talking about, internally, as well as getting the word out, highlight some of exactly what that looks like. So for example, I was talking to Amy Cam today about what does it look like to highlight and really thank some folks who are students recognize as the trusted adults in the building. And what is the particular work of a trusted adult, and sharing that, celebrating some of the people who know are those trusted adults and what do they do, and sharing that with other people. I have a lot of new staff, right, with COVID and just turnover and things. So what does it look like to be a good trusted adult? So it's just one example of how to take something that doesn't have a face or a personality from a list that you just saw, and how to bring that alive for people. So that's an idea of like internally making it alive. So people can really see it and get recognized.
Laura?
So a couple things, but firstly, obviously kudos to the teachers and to Amy Cam. And I really wanted to mention, Samantha and I had a meeting with NEASC in 2021, it probably was, when we were new to the committee. It must have been Allison at the time who said to us that James Cook is amazing. And take care of him.
Yes.
Remember? She said to us, we were new school committee members. And they were like, don't, like, make sure you take care of him because he is leading this school where it needs to go. So I just want you to know that because we had this experience and it was really quite, it was really quite impressive. And so.
Thank you for sharing that. I do keep trying to keep those things out of the things, because there's so much work behind it, because what I see, and I appreciate you saying it.
He saw it, is I guess what I'm saying.
I appreciate you saying it because I kept saying, was that me asked that? felt
I
like
was
so long ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, one question about, so I read the report. And this is sort of a difficult question, but the one thing they said under foundational element 2.2a, student learning, where they said does not meet standard. I want to understand that a little bit.
No, that's a good thing. So I was just talking about talking about this with one of the chairs, David DePietro, one of our math teachers who goes out on a lot of visits. No school that we're aware of visit I've been on, talking to Allison, and none of the visits Dave's been on, and he goes to 3 or 4 every year, have met that requirement. Because what the requirement is it's for a written curriculum in a standard format for every course in the school, right? And so what's always happening is we're adding courses, we're evolving, we've got new teachers come in. And so what we were able to do, though, as you saw in the report, is move from having, in our core areas, so that your math, your English, your social studies, and your core science classes, we're able to move so we have the comprehensive curriculum in those areas. Right. Which I've been here for 24 years. We did another NEASC run, right? Like I was here for the last decennial visit, and I chaired the curriculum subcommittee back then. And we were working on it back then. So to get it to the point where we had the core elements in, and now we're working on, CBTE was done. World language was also complete. Was working on a few electives, right? Like things that are maybe there's one teacher who teaches 4 different classes, and so they have a scope and sequence, but where that one person is responsible for them bringing that into a what we call a UBD format, an understanding by design, backwards design format in a particular way. So that's a lot of work for that one person. It's not something that's easy to help with because it takes the expertise of the expert in that field. So that's the work we're continuing to do. And the report that I write, and Allison and I talked about this as well, Allison Geary and I, it will give them the progress. So how do we continue to update the work we've already done? Because curriculum's unending, we revise things every single year. One of the things we'll be doing at the mid-year assessments is, okay, what do we need to change in the curriculum? And also continuing to have a written curriculum in more and more of what we call the singleton classes, where we might have one section of that class. So hopefully we'll get there by the 3-year report in 2 years. By the, we'll actually meet that 2A standard.
It's deceptive. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a little bit deceptive.
We have made that case several times. Like, can't you have it be for the core class? Couldn't you make that standard something that is reasonable for a high school to have the way the others are? But it's okay. We like things to shoot for, right? We like bold things. So
There was one other thing I noticed in their report, which I just want to know your feedback on, which I thought was interesting. I don't know if you guys saw this. Recommendation for all staff and administration, including the school committee, to engage in culturally responsive bias reflection training. Which I'm always for that in every way, all the time. But just, is that something that we take on? Or, that's something that NEASC was encouraging. And I noticed it. So.
yeah, no, that's great. So we've been able to work that into our, to some of our professional development in social emotional learning, right? It's a key part of it. And we even name the aspect of, having being a welcoming, including school with inclusion practices. And I just set up the two faculty members who help run the racial equity team. We are planning our semester meeting for what's PD going to look like in the second half of the year. We're also doing the bias reviews of our curriculum is another place that shows up for us, right? Taking that bias training and then using it to apply it to the curriculum documents. But and we did start, I think I presented, or Amy Cam may have presented our the World of Difference, partnering with ADL to have student trainers in the ADL, as well as our racial equity team for our students. But inviting the whole community into that work is really a great thing to talk about. It'll be a great thing to talk about, I think. And Allison and NEASC this is one of their big changes too in the cycle that wasn't really mentioned or part of or had a standard even when they did their 2020 review. It's been sort of a review of the 2020 approach has been a greater emphasis on equity and inclusion and anti-bias work.
Yeah, I would say, what I would add to that is, high schools, digging into this and working on it for a number of years, and curriculums, instruction, sort of stuff, and some of concrete practices as we've spoken about. There's also some basics in place in terms of just instruction, curriculum, that sort of stuff, which while we have them in place at the elementary, just starting at O'Malley. So, and you want to have some of those things in place before you then do some of this work on, cultural bias, that sort of thing. So, because it's hard to do both at the same time. Okay. But in terms of the school committee, I think it's really important for us to understand that as a community of educators. And so, if the school committee was interested in that, wanted to, I think that is a strong signal to the community, would be a strong signal, position of leadership, that us understanding, how bias impacts our lives, our education, our schools, sort of stuff, by looking at that. So again, I'm not, that's your decision, that's something to think hard about, but that would be a strong positive signal of the importance of that work if a group of community leaders, school leaders, I say, it's an important signal to the school community, which is really important, obviously. So, but yeah, so I think it's appropriate to consider, and the school community think about it. Now, then may begin learning more. Well, what does that mean? Because
I
because
just thought it was an
that's a
interesting.
yeah.
Thing to recommend in this
Yeah.
kind of report.
Yeah.
And it was a clear.
it's something that the Master Church school committees is working on. Certainly, Master school committees helping us understand a bit more. Maybe I'm doing some leadership work on that with Master Church school superintendents. So yeah, so I think, again, if it's something that the committee wants to learn more about as a way to figure it out. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay.
This looked like a lot of work. I'm amazed. What, like, the things that I learned, just like in the first year, like, the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes is monumental, it seems like. I'm amazed that you guys, with the pandemic and all that stuff, have done so much. I guess what I'm wondering about is, how does this help, like, say, like on a Google search, like, what do you call it? How does it help our reputation, getting this accreditation? Like the reputation of our school, I don't know, realtor sites, things like that. Maybe even promoting it on a website. I noticed on their website, they, you can put like our accreditation on our Gloucester High School webpage. Things like that. What does this do to further our reputation is, I guess, what I'm wondering. And how prominent is this? And I know, do all schools aspire to get this accreditation, or?
Most in our area, most
Yeah.
schools, there are a few schools that don't participate, but most schools do
Yeah,
in our area, in New England, that's one of them. And in terms of, as I mentioned earlier, it's a lot of talking about how to get the word out about the accreditation overall and about some of the particular commendations. So I believe there'll be a part on the website.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll be doing social media posts, which link then to a new webpage on our website about this specifically, so folks can look at, can read a sort of introductory text about it, and look at the commendations quickly. We'll have a sort of an infographic which folks can digest quickly. We're hoping for some newspaper coverage on it, and then I think also just I think broadcasting on the website very clearly. The Ask accredited high school makes a lot of sense. That's one thing we had not thought about, so it's helpful. But yeah, so I think does help the reputation, does help the standing. It's and I think particularly there are particular areas we're commending, highlighting some of those in concrete ways, as James was talking about.
And some of the things that are commended here are difficult to quantify. MCAS, much easier to quantify. Some of the work on social emotional learning, equity and inclusion, some of the professional development work. Those are things that are harder to put a number on, right? And they hard, therefore, to promote. So when you have a reputable organization of educators and professionals who spent a good amount of time with us, saying these things about the school, that's something we want to get out there, because it like I say, it can get eclipsed by other kinds of information.
Is this report, the entire report, public information?
Yes, so this there are things we need to do to make it available to the public, including through
I think we're literally sending out to all families tomorrow.
Secretly?
So no,
Literally.
literally, we're sending it all out.
I think we said we're secretly.
Very quietly. No, we're literally sending out.
The entire report is a question, or is it?
No, we're
like-
sending a link to where they can then learn more about it. Basically, we summarize the
It
content.
is a public report, yes.
Yes, you'll have a colorful bullet point
Infographic.
infographic
Yeah.
that people will get to
Yes,
see.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That you'll also share with us. after
They're
that
quite,
to
yeah.
parents.
It's almost.
We have a lot of opinions about it, so that'll be.
No, what you're talking about is what are they open and what are they gonna read, right? Yeah,
What's
so,
actually gonna take it?
The bullet points that you guys create, the
yes.
infographic.
Yeah, the infographic that will.
With some color.
Do you need some Canva help?
Yes, actually, yes, no, yes, we're taking in what you're saying and adjusting on the fly.
Yeah.
But no, but that's what we're getting at everybody. We're making it easy to follow through in the link and get some snippets of it. And, you'll see an effort over the next few days, about this and there'll be room for improvement.
An effort. I
Okay.
like that.
There are graphics, it's colorful.
I'm not going to talk too big because it's first steps, okay?
Subject.
Folks, it's light years ahead of what we did like last week or 2 years ago, okay?
But no me asking the subject.
I don't think it would be that.
Okay, great. Just something people will understand.
I've learned a lot about Canva in this time, so I appreciate that learning about it because it helps with communication, right? I will.
Gloucester High School commended for achievement.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm reacting to it will not be a colorful snazzy email, okay, but it'll be something that people can absorb and click through. Okay, but it will not be colorful. We're not there quite yet. But we have to freaking graphic.
Pick a different font.
What's that?
Pick a nice font.
Okay, all right.
See color.
Discuss font. What did
No,
you
not for
think?
the email, for the info.
I know we.
I know. I just, yeah, working on it.
So for websites that say like rate schools, does this factor into like some ratings? That was my other part of my question.
Grade schools is about a few commenters.
Yeah.
It's about standardized tests, and it's about,
Right.
it's about the wealth of your school district.
Yeah, I've looked into those reports a lot.
Anything you want to do to adjust it, to impact the metrics, you're welcome to do. I'm sure there's some algorithm people can do. No, it's out there, but no, but this is in all seriousness, your question, how do we continue to work on making sure the perception of our schools matches the reality?
Yeah.
It's very important, and also the reality continues to improve.
Yeah, with retention.
Yeah, so I don't take it lightly. It's an important point. And we have to keep on, efforts of, just like this, you're talking about tonight, making sure folks know about this good news. It's really good news. It really speaks, more than just a number. And this was hard to communicate. This is an established, reputable organization that has learned a lot about our school. And because they know a lot about it, they're saying great things about it, and that is of a lot of value to us. It's just not as easy to package, so that's what we're getting better at, and we'll take a stab at it and get input out our efforts. So, but it's hugely important what you're asking. It's hugely important.
Well, thank you. Excellent report. Congratulations.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Bravo.
Jason. All right, move on to a few more things in terms of the report on the limited educational. So budget development, just to give folks an update about where we are on budget development, and because we're about to enter the sort of public phase of the budget planning and development. I just want to give all of you, and thereby the public, thank you, James, sort of
Good, James. Good night.
a preview of what's coming. So we will start with our BNF budget meetings, which all of you are invited to. The first one will be on next week on the 17th, then the 18th, 5 o'clock here. Those priority meetings, those budget priority meetings are when we come forward school by school and the major departments to help you understand what our priorities are for the upcoming school year. Okay. You probably hear folks say a lot that there hasn't been much change from last year in terms of priorities. We're continuing on them because that's really true and actually really important and strategic. You'll also find out that you'll see them very closely tied to the plan for ongoing improvement, especially the schools priorities, okay? So the priorities that the departments, transportation, food service, IT talk about are the ones that are in their plans for ongoing improvement. You haven't seen those final versions yet, but you have seen the schools, right? So we're providing through these presentations, providing you folks with the sort of basis for the priorities for the budget, okay? Because our budgets always have to fund our priorities, okay? Prioritize our them, okay? And so in terms of the principles, I sort of said this in some ways, our principles for developing the budget for FY24 is one, align with the GPS 3-year plan for ongoing improvement. And again, those 4 priorities are deepen student belonging and engagement, strengthen instruction, then also better connect general education, special education. So those are working together as opposed to being siloed. Strengthen social emotional learning, mental health support, and then strengthen specific in special education, strengthen our coordination of services and specialized instruction. So really that's sort of in the blocking, tackling of real specific instruction around students with disabilities, but also the processes in terms of evaluating and identifying services for them. So that's the 4 priorities of our 3-year plan for ongoing improvement. We've got to deal with the current fiscal realities, and we're going to be talking to you about some disruptions that have happened really coming out of the pandemic, but also in terms of current economic climate, specifically related to schools. And that's going to be learning more about the impacts on transportation services and also added tuition rates and a few others that are really making an impact and make this budget just sort of, it's going to take some effort to work it through, but we'll get there. And then building a budget based on the current program reality. So the current program reality is really 2 things that, while they're part of the plan program on ongoing improvement, we really have to address them sort of head on. That's the growing numbers of students with complex needs, such education students, but ones that really have learning and social emotional needs, and to a degree that we haven't seen before or haven't seen the numbers say. That's a shift. And then the also reality is continuing to invest in O'Malley to make sure that instruction, school culture, the performance really continues to so the foundations of the school really are strengthened and continue moving forward them, like we've invested in the high school and elementary school. So those are the things that just highlight. So those are the principles. Any questions so far? And these are things that'll be reiterated and reinforced as we go along. When we start having budget priority meetings next week, when a department or school comes in front of the BNF committee, they'll talk about start with their area of strength. What are they doing well? What their priorities are for next school year. The work is already in progress on those priorities because those typically aren't things that are starting fresh for the most part. And then what they tend to do next year to further strengthen those priorities. Okay, so sort of what's good now, what they're focusing on, progress already making in those areas, and then what has to happen next year, because that's what we need to fund. Okay, that's what we need to and when I say fund, I don't mean new necessarily. I mean continue to invest in this. So much more. And then the budget calendar. So again, we're sort of we're at this entering this second row here. It's not the 12th. It's going to be I got waylaid 17th, 18th. There'll be one more meeting. You'll see that these are the ones that on the 17th. The preschool, elementary school, special education, English learners will come to present their priorities. The 18th is the GHS O'Malley, and then also teaching and learning. And then we go into the, then those are not numbers. I want to say those aren't numbers presentations, priorities presentations, okay? The numbers presentations start on February 1st when Gary and I present to the BNF. And then after that, to the whole school committee, beginning of February. Then we get into the blocking and tackling of the budget book, public hearing budget, public hearing itself, submitting it to the mayor, voting to, school committee voting to submit the budget to the mayor. And we enter the city's part of the budget process, which includes public hearing, a city council review, vote by the city council, and then that turns to us for a final vote. It should be June 28th, but maybe earlier than that. Hopefully earlier.
What is it?
It was June 28th here, but hopefully it's a leak.
It's usually Fiesta Wednesday
right.
every year.
So
That would be the 28th.
so maybe that's
No. 21st is Fiesta. So
I think it might be the 21st, but that's so
Yeah, it'll be the 21st.
We'll get that detail.
When does city council meet?
And then, so when we do come to the BF, meeting on the 1st of February, so getting the numbers here, and then the full committee on the 8th of February, we'll be presenting the draft budget total, significant changes from last year to this year. And we'll talk about some of the major pieces, including added tuition, special education circuit breaker, and then federal and state grant adjustments. So that's when we get to the numbers, but that's about a month, well, not 3 weeks away, I guess. That's it on the budget preview. Questions?
I got an oddball question, about the O'Malley, the rig. How much of the budget is that, like, is that like a self-sustaining, like, do we?
That was.
Yeah, I was wondering, yeah,
So-
okay.
DPW.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was
Turn
always
that
curious
over to
about
them.
that, all right.
It used to be ours.
Yeah,
Well, I'm glad it's not.
I mean, yeah, because that could be a big, issue depending
I
on,
wouldn't know how to run a rink.
yeah. Yeah, all right, yeah, okay.
Yep, no problem. So then Beaman Playground. So a bunch of updates on this, including we'll need a vote on something that has newly been brought to us, but I'll get that in a moment. So December 14th, what it looked like here. Ground was kind of frozen, rocks were being moved, we hit some ledge shortly after that. Then last Saturday, so we got through all this. There were some real hiccups in terms of the site and ledge and weather. And so just getting to this point took a fair bit of time. Then things got really rolling. As you can see, last Saturday, all the equipment was installed by that point. The landscape had to be shifted around or installed, so to speak. On right there, you see this is Tuesday, so that's yesterday. You see gravels put down over the dirt here, gravels, some more dirt, gravel, mesh, okay? That gets it to the correct surface level. And then today, they added all the engineered wood fiber.
That's what that looks like.
Yep, and it's done. Except tomorrow they're tightening, after they install everything and they do all the round, what's
Landscape?
not only landscaping, the surface, okay? Then they have the tightenings up again. Okay, so the tightenings up again tomorrow, okay? And once they tighten those things up again, then they'll be able to play tomorrow, but they've got to remove the safety, the caution tape. There's a little bit of false start this afternoon. Because the guys who are working on this took down the safety tape and shouldn't have. Safety, be back up 7:30 a.m. tomorrow, so they can do the sort of final check. Questions?
Be available over the weekend.
Okay. So, what I didn't put on here was that, but as I said earlier, before December break, the ribbon cutting will be the 18th. I think it's 10:30 a.m. We'll get out. I'll get out of those slots. Okay. And I invited
10:30.
10:30 on the 18th.
There's.
I'm just curious if there are swings.
Yeah, the 2 sets of swings.
Okay.
One is complete, so that the older, I think you're saying there's an older set we kept up, but the new swings have been put on it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think they look like a piece to me.
Well, they will look, I mean, they look tall.
Yeah, so, and then, here, you can't really see it, but in the
Yeah.
background here is the new set of swings.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah,
and
I
they-
can make it out.
I think they're installed, they should be installed this point, I just haven't gotten eyes on them today. These pictures are mine, these pictures are my Daphne's. So then another important piece, so any questions about the playground before we move on to another part of the playground?
It's very exciting.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
super duper exciting.
yeah, big deal, I mean, this is, your playground,
I could go there, but it's just been a long time coming. Many people have worked on this,
Right.
especially Amanda Silva, for a long time, so.
Amanda Silva was a real linchpin in this, real leadership. Holly Mayer, another PTO head right now, have been great and really supportive and very involved in the design of it. Jody Gioni, obviously, of course, the school committee in terms of allowing funding for it. And so, yeah, I mean, 2 new playgrounds in 1 school year is.
In the winter.
It doesn't happen a whole lot, you know. We made a choice on this one. We could have easily postponed this till the spring. And we made a sort of risky decision by having it, they were saying sort of mid-November, and it became December 1st sort of thing in terms of equipment, because there was delay on equipment. But we did make that choice to push it earlier rather than wait until springtime. And while there's, a 3-week delay or so, plus the December break, I think it's worth it.
They can't wait to get outside, because in the final moments of this, the kids haven't been able to be outside. So it's really exciting.
Yeah.
Really.
So, now then, a few weeks ago, Director of Veteran Services, Adam Kukuru, who's just been great and does great work with the schools. I just want to take a moment to say he's a great partner. The Veteran Affairs, Veteran Services, great folks. He's always including our students. One of the most recent example was the Veterans Day ceremony here at the high school. Anyway, he reached out and it brought to my attention something I didn't know, honestly, was that we have the Beaman playground has a memorial to Lieutenant Earl F. Rice, who's a World War II veteran. And it just so happens that the memorial, the playground is here. The memorial is here, right next to Cherry Street. And it's a great looking memorial, or stone wall, a rock with a nice plaque on it. But it's just nowhere near, and it was installed a long time ago. Let me give you some of the details here. It was installed in the 1950s. Really, I think before that school was built. Okay, I mean maybe it was rebuilt, I think. So it's not quite in the right place. And he approached myself and also the mayor with, is there, now we're doing playground, is there a chance to move it so it's closer to the playgrounds? It's memorializing, okay, in his honor. So just a few things about Earl F. Rice. So the playground has been honoring him for many years, although folks lost track of it because the memorial's far away. He was a first lieutenant in the U.S. Army Air Force. He's the son of Earl Rice and Avis A. Thompson Rice, graduate of Gloucester High School in 1938. Like many men at that time, he enlisted in the armed forces shortly after graduation in 1939. Like a lot of men as well, he sort of went into service and then got married as he was shipping off to overseas. He flew B-24 Liberators in the Pacific Theater, and then died during service on Lake Island on September 1944. You have in your packet when the playground was named in his honor, and what I'm supporting and Adam Kukuru approached us about was replacing that memorial close to the playground, so it'd be have a more prominent place for students and families to know about him, about his story, and who the playground is named for. We haven't decided where yet. Wanted to talking with the mayor and Adam, figured that getting the committee to have a vote on supporting that move will be a great first step, and then allowing us to figure out the blocking and tackling with DPW and Veterans Services. Where's the best spot, basically. But wanted to bring that to you.
Put the picture back where it is.
Oh, yes. Great. So playground's here. I mean, that's the old playground.
So it looks like it's on the road so that you can see it from the road to know the playground is there as opposed to being at the playground. Like at Veteran School, the rock is up at the top on the road where you walk by,
Right.
playground's down in the corner. So that was probably their intention at that time, not saying that's the right intention.
Right. I think that's very possible. And I don't mean, and as we know, the school was built after that. So anyway,
So can I ask, would the plan be to move that memorial or to create a different?
no, move that memorial, which a couple of things. So I believe when we West Parish, we rededicated the West Parish playground for the I can't remember the name of the person who recognizes, that was moved when the building was rebuilt, okay? was decided not to move the Tomatoes one, leave it where it is. And I was working with some folks in the community to make that decision. And then, just recently moved the Vietnam Veterans Memorial from outside the high school over to Sageport Park. So moving memorials is not an uncommon thing. But it would be to keep the same rock and plaque. Whether or not it has this sort of design with a wall, I guess, I think that's TBD. It's not read that far though, but certainly to keep this.
Right.
Yeah, that was what Adam and Mr. Kugler said to us.
And I know that there's probably no way to know this at this point, and this would be a DPW question probably. But obviously, we're looking 10 years down the road at a new school. And that, you know, we have no idea. I'm not presupposing that we do, but that's the biggest piece of land around, right, the Beaman spot. So I would just love for that to be brought into the conversation about where it goes, so that we're not moving it again, right? That, you know, at some point, maybe somebody's gonna be developing plans for a new building on that spot.
I think we keep moving it and keep celebrating them.
Maybe we do.
I don't
Brings
think
to the
it's,
public
yeah, I
attention.
don't think it's the end of the world if we
Yeah.
move it for a third time.
Right.
Later on, so.
Because we're talking about it, we never talked about it, right?
Yeah.
So it brings to the attention
I mean,
to what else.
in whenever this was, the early 50s, whenever they put this there, it made sense. Nowadays, you know, whatever it's 70 years later, it makes sense to move it close to the playground. When we build a new school, combined school perhaps, at the Beaman site,
Right.
move it another time would make sense, so.
Okay.
But I think, I mean, most of us, I've only lived here my whole life, I never was aware. There's a connection between it.
Between the playground and.
Right, I mean,
Yeah, I wasn't either, and I go there weekly.
Is it visible from Cherry Street?
Yeah, you walk right by it.
We do.
It's visible there, but not from the school.
Not from the school.
Yeah,
I think
you have to
we-
go through the woods.
it would be cool to repurpose that little area with something.
It's cute.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
good.
it's powerful.
Up being inside.
Thing.
You have one?
They want to do one, they want to do one, raise one code, once they want to, so. I think we have a motion.
So you want a motion to approve the movement of the Earl F. Rice Jr. Memorial at Beaman Memorial Elementary School.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, so this is an approval to move it based upon what the Veterans Affairs and the schools decide is the appropriate spot, which we know will be closer in front of the playground.
And then we'll report back to you as we're figuring it out, and then that may include, you know, here or here type of thing. You know, if we have some options like that, yeah, we'll keep you guys informed.
And will the students be involved with like the re-memorialization of that?
Haven't gotten there yet,
Yeah.
but it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I don't know if something was done with West Parish, but even if it
I
wasn't,
think there was.
yeah, yeah, so that's a great idea. Yeah.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, roll call vote, Ray, please.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
Ms. Prince.
Yes.
Mayor Burke,
Yes.
Ms. Watson.
Yes.
Ms. Weason. Yes. Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
Mr. Marvel.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to Adam. Okay, we have one more grant to approve, from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Number 209, improving ventilation and air quality grant in the amount of $438,000 and $4,200. For the O'Malley, Beaman and Plum Cove schools. I so moved.
Okay.
Tell us what that might. And I think it's kind of self-explanatory, but
Well, it's a grant from DESI for improving ventilation and air quality. And we put it together to focus specifically on HVAC RTUs to supply fresh air in classrooms in 2 elementary schools, Beaman and Plum Cove. And also to provide additional fresh air to the kitchen in O'Malley.
Has there been discussions with the DPW that that's what we want to do?
Yes, Mike Hale was part of it. Mike Hale worked with Gary Fish.
We're not telling Debbie how to.
Mike Hale
Okay,
chose priority.
Yeah, no, as soon as we heard somebody was available, our next hire was Mike Hale.
Okay.
And he said, do this. I said, okay.
And when would this be implemented?
So as once the grant money comes in, they can start putting things that work out for bid and things like that, I would presume.
probably this summer.
That would make sense,
Yeah.
but that would be up to
And-
the DPW.
By the time you are.
This actually is part of this is tied to the modulars.
What?
So the modulars,
Oh,
the work that wasn't completed last year was rooftop units.
Yeah.
So this is a way of doing that.
RTUs.
Yeah.
RTU.
Yeah,
Thank you.
the timeline on this was short. And while it was the first round, we can't guarantee the second round. So Mike thought it was best to go with things that were already, very much in the pipeline. That's what they, and so that's what we saw.
Great.
So we went with, there was the grand plans and it's fun. It's fun. That's the way it's supposed to work.
Is there gonna be a surplus balance? I mean, is this the sum total as budgeted? How did this grant come
Well,
about?
and another piece is when I first went to Mike, he goes, that doesn't go very far, right? You know that,
I was
right?
wondering,
And
yeah.
I'm like. But no, it's it eats it all up.
Yeah, I mean, like, as far as like maintaining in the future, go. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
That's not DPW.
So the one rooftop will get done.
no.
So it's an allocation grant of Desi, and we don't turn it down, it's almost $500,000. And we reached out to Mike Hale to see what do we prioritize that would fit this budget, and this is what he came up with to help out 3 schools. It's pretty good.
Roll call vote, Maria, please.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
Ms. Prince.
Yes.
Mayor Verda,
Yes.
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Ms. Weason.
Yes.
Jefferson Clancy.
Yes.
Mr. Melvin.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is an update on the East Veterans Elementary School.
Right, so. My screen sharing is paused. You know, that means something. No. My screen sharing is paused. Okay, here we go. So a couple updates. So some big movement in terms of things that are happening at East Veterans. So first of all, December 15th, so just after the day after our last school committee meeting, we had our entire project team met with the MSBA. Sort of the first official meeting with them. And so they give some news. One, the in-person site, we'll have in-person site visits by MSBA to the project site every month going forward. Okay. Pro pay submissions and reimbursements. So big piece here is obviously getting reimbursements from the MSBA. That's now happening, and the submissions go through a system called Pro Pay. We are starting with all the city does this work in terms of that, and the city's been great and with getting kicked off. And we're starting with the WT Rich invoices. That's the construction manager at risk. Those are large invoices, so we're submitting all those first to get them first as quick as possible. And MSBA was clear on 2 things. One, clear in their commitment to getting us our reimbursements as quickly as possible, working with us to the extent that there are some new city staff who aren't up to speed on Pro Pay, and they offer to train our staff, or the city department, John Dunn's office, to help them know how to use it. So there'd be just good turnover. We know what to do, or not we. City staff know how to do that. And then Jennifer Connerton, who's sort of our product manager or sort of main contact, it's a quote from her, I did not make this up. But she has a lot of, just said, which is the product really that's been a little engine that could, we just don't plug it away, keep on plugging away, making progress, and they're really pleased with the progress. They're really pleased it's on schedule, on budget. They haven't had too much contact with us, lately, but certainly been keeping an eye on things. And really appreciate the team and appreciate the work we've been doing. So that was a great meeting, and obviously much closer connection with them and partnership going forward. And then some important milestones we reached. So all the rooftop, speaking of rooftop units, all the rooftop units were arrived just before December break, which was a big deal in terms of materials and lead times. And installation is already underway. We also received a lot of the millwork and the casework, and that's being installed now. They're completing the brick veneer, I think perhaps this week or right now. And also completing the piping and electrical connections to the rooftop unit. So the rooftops, units arrived, literally, they arrived by being put on the roof, and then very quickly have been doing the electrical plumbing related to that. And then ongoing work, so continuing sheetrock finishing and painting classrooms in both building A and B, the curtain wall installation, which is the very large windows in the front of the building and inside the building. Building B, elevator installations happening. The acoustical grid, ceilings are happening, that kind of like this stuff. And then classroom lighting, electrical systems, HVAC are all happening as well. So they're really, and this is a lot of interior work, cabinetry, painting, installation of the sheetrock, that sort of stuff. But it's real. It's not finished work by any means, but it's really making progress on the interior now. It's great.
I have a question. And I don't know, Mayor, maybe you might know the answer to this as well as superintendent, but so having worked at the courthouse for 30 years and being in charge of facilities, I've worked with the DPW on a daily basis with all the issues that happen in that building from the courthouse floor. And I know it's always a guessing game as what's behind the walls, like how are things installed, and they're always looking for plans to try to figure it out. So I guess my question is being appreciative of their work and their attempts to try to fix things. Has the city employees been brought into the building to see what is going on so that if there is an issue down the road, they know how things were built? In other words, you can see systems in place now. So before the sheetrock goes.
So this is actually a great question. This is a great question. Not actually, this is a great question.
I don't know what it's
Happy
called,
with-
but
right.
they are, one of the videos they do is documenting everything. From once a month or every 2 weeks, I think. They literally do a video of the entire space. So whatever sheet or camera is
Where the
behind
bodies
every
are
wall, so they can
Yeah.
see what the piping is coming
Behind the
down and
walls,
behind
yeah,
the walls, so they know
exactly.
exactly where they are. And that is a complete record of
Okay.
how it was built and what is where.
So they'll have access to that.
Yes,
Yeah, it gets.
yeah, it's like
It's really neat.
really big difference, right? And it's so
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, they're not looking
Yeah.
at notes, they're looking
Yeah.
to
Right.
say.
Okay, so there's a video, they can watch a video, or they're like, computer, diagrams.
Yeah.
I know when
Oh, yeah.
we had a new music venue built, I was always looking through the as-builds, as they call them, right? Like, okay,
Right.
this is modern, like even a step further.
Yeah, so I have all those plus this,
Yeah.
video record, and I think calling it a video record is underplaying it. In terms of how it's cataloged, how it's been brought up and utilized. But they've been clear about this, all the way through. This is what how they're documenting it. So,
Okay.
yeah, but it'll be a different version of, at some point, folks have to go into this sort of thing, what's there, and know what's there behind the walls. Yep, no guessing.
Awesome.
Well, Joe Lucido has been on the building committee, so for all the system things and everything, there's definitely the direct link. So. Anybody have any new business? Okay, motion to adjourn? So move. Second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Minio,
Yes.
Ms. Prince.
Yes.
Mayor Verda. Mrs. Watson.
Yes.
Ms. Weason. Yeah. Mrs. Swenson.
Yes.
Yes.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone who attended. Good night.